Oh, it's Mr. McFeely.
I have seen the future, and he was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimsley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
Wow, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Let's do some broadcasting.
Yeah. We'll do some broadcasting with our guy, Mike McFeely, who came in with a cryptic tweet saying a surprise guest is coming with me.
A cryptic tweet?
Yeah.
Well,
it's the name.
Okay, so let me explain the situation here. Okay, so I don't know if you knew this, but Kolpak set up on Saturday to have a horse join you guys in the set of Bison Game Day. And which is great. That's good stuff, right? I was laughing. It was great. But it hasn't stopped there.
Uh-huh.
It's been like 3 straight days now of Kolpak patting himself on the back and talking about Racer One nonstop.
Yeah.
I mean, on my podcast, on the flight back, on this program yesterday, on the Izzo and Kolpak podcast, Bison video blog.
Mm-hmm.
It's all he's talked about is Racer One. It's like he's the only guy that has a horse connection here.
Yep.
I brought a special guest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did. If I could get him out of my pocket, it'd be a way better bit. Well, this is not working well.
Well,
I too have a horse.
Oh.
This is Racer One, 32nd. He is a quarter horse.
Yes.
Yep. And you can even see.
Is he a gelding as well?
Well, actually, he's not a gelding, actually. So sorry about that. If there's a kid, you might want to edit that part out. He's not a gelding. So he's not exactly like Racer One.
Oh, man.
But he does have silver.
See that?
Horseshoes.
Yeah,
in the bottom.
horseshoes. Yep.
And so,
well, there you go.
Just so that I can also,
you could bring guests.
I can bring guests, and I can be just as good as Kolpak and talk about it for 7 straight days. I am going to gift you.
Thank you.
I'm going to gift you Racer One
32nd.
32nd.
All right.
So he can stay right here.
He can go right here
right
where the Jets helmet used to be, because it's not coming back.
If Eric and the guys could have one of those black strips down there, since he's not a gelding.
Thank you. That's
that'd be
fantastic.
great. Yeah, so
all right.
There. Now you have your own horse.
Fantastic.
As a memory of Murray, Kentucky.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Murray, Kentucky. You walked around town. You got a little bit of a glimpse of it. I mean, fine town. I think you wrote it perfectly on Friday in your column that when Western Illinois moved on, Murray State has firmly supplanted them as the doormat of the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and we have spoken. I don't want to give much more attention to the lamenting on it what it was, but it's going to be a long road for Jody Wright to win there.
And as you and Kolpak talked about yesterday, nothing against the people of Murray, Kentucky.
No.
The town is fine. I went downtown into Murray, and it did feel a lot like Macomb downtown.
Yeah.
It had the old style town square with the courthouse in the middle and the clock tower, and then the businesses in a block around that.
Yep.
Nice super duper Confederate statue there honoring the Confederacy, which was fantastic. Great job. And by the way, Kentucky was in the Union. I mean, it was like a fight.
Yeah.
Civil War history. It's like Kentucky wasn't even a slave state, or it wasn't like they were fighting of what side they were going to be on.
Right.
Like there were more Union soldiers from Kentucky than Confederate soldiers. But be that as it may, it just, Dean Brashani was right.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear it.
No.
And again, no offense to Murray, Kentucky or Murray State. They are what they are. It is what it is. But it's what fun is it beating a team 72 to whatever?
Yeah, there's none.
What fun is it beating a team 59 to whatever? My God, they go to South Dakota State this week. South Dakota State could literally score 100 points on them. I mean, without even breaking a sweat.
Correct. Yep.
You know, I mean, so I don't know.
And then they have Kentucky to play out of the SEC, and they have Missouri State. I mean, they have other vaunted teams to come on their schedule. The Bison were just the start of it, of their last 3 that they have that are not easy games here.
By
it's going to be 1-11.
After Saturday, the Dakota schools, are going to score.
Yeah. Well, let's see. UND scored
250 points on them in 4 games.
UND scored 72. South Dakota scored 59. The Bison scored 59.
59.
I'm not a great math mind, so that's 120.
That's 118 plus 72.
So now we're at 190.
190.
Yeah. And then they got
so
they're
going to score. The 4 Dakota schools are going to score 250 points.
That's low if you're
on Murray State.
Jesus. Not good.
And what? And again, we're spending way too much time on this, but after we're done doing our interviews and the post game video and all that stuff, walked to the elevator by the football locker room and the football offices in the stadium there, and I know that football's a tough game. I know that after every game there are players with ice and sore bodies and twisted ankles, but my gosh, the handful of Murray State players I saw were just.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just banged up and demoralized. And I mean, what fun is it?
Can't be.
It's not fun for them. It's not fun for the winning team.
Nope.
So good job, Missouri Valley Football Conference.
On that note, the Bison are back home this week and have Northern Iowa coming into town. And this used to be, Jeff and I were remarking on this on the video blog yesterday. Northern Iowa, before South Dakota State got its act together, was the game. That was the game on the schedule. And for a generation of Bison football fans who don't know, the rivalry really began before the Bison were any good. It was 2009.
Well, yeah, I would argue it even started
2008
before
maybe.
that because
the Bison were voted number 1.
Exactly.
That's right.
I mean, where it started was
that's right.
North Dakota State went from the Great West Conference in 2007 to the Valley in 2008.
Never played a game.
And they voted them to win the conference that year. And if you look back in history, Northern Iowa dominated what was the Gateway Conference for a while, and then the Missouri Valley. But Northern Iowa was North Dakota State before North Dakota State was North Dakota State.
Kleiman told us that because Kleiman was an assistant coach there, and that was when that came out. That was bulletin board material,
as it should have been.
Northern Iowa. The Bison had never played a game in the league, and they were voted number 1. So the Bison went to Cedar Falls in 2008, and you and I, I mean, it was not a blowout, but it was not close.
No, it was
Northern Iowa manhandled them in the game. The following year, the Bison are in the midst of one of their worst years in 40 some odd seasons. They won 3 football games, and Northern Iowa came up here and manhandled them again. I think it was 42-27, something like that. But one thing happened in that game that sparked what was to come for the following years, which everybody that around Bison football knows what I'm talking about, was the All-American running back Pat Paschal getting pushed out of bounds and started a melee, brouhaha, fracas, Donnybrook, whatever you want to use for it.
Did you fit in Pier 6 brawl? I love the phrase Pier 6 brawl.
But I did, that's not bad. I dug up the video, and this is the time the WDAY radio was still broadcasting the game. So we have the dulcet tones of one Scotty Miller
my goodness
on the
gracious.
call.
And I thought Racer 132nd was going to be the best
good.
part of the show.
So, Eric, go ahead and play this. This is 2009, Bison, Northern Iowa.
Bison from the UNI 38. Mertens back to pass. Protection holds. He steps up in the pocket and runs and now shovels it ahead to Paschal at the 29. A flag is down. Paschal is pulled out of bounds. Oh my gosh! A fight. And we got a fight! And I hope Bridget Kessler, our parabolic holder, is all right. I think she just got run over. There is a scrum and a couple of flags have now been thrown.
I'll tell you what, number 24 for Northern Iowa threw a punch there. He should be ejected.
At the 29, a flag is down. Paschal is pulled out of bounds. Oh my gosh! A fight, and we got a fight! And I hope Bridget Kessler, our parabolic holder, is all right. I think she just got run over.
Love Scotty.
Yep,
There is
fantastic.
a scrum.
There's one word.
A couple of flags have now been thrown.
That's what started it right there.
24
2009.
threw a punch there. He should be ejected.
He used the word scrum. We forgot that one.
Being ridden out of bounds.
And that started it all, Michael, right there.
I think the best part was you could hear the woman's voice go,
Yeah, get him!
I mean, Scotty was great, but the woman yelling, get him!
I don't know. And Bridget, by the way, still does that. She still holds the parabolic now, 15 years later. But I don't know where the parabolic went, but it clearly was by the stands.
You can hear the boop. Well, you can hear it go boop, boop, boop when the players were hitting it. You can hear the lady in the stands. You just imagine some Bison fan.
Yes, exactly.
It could easily be my wife, for goodness sakes, if she would have had seats that good. Somebody stands up and yells, "Get up!"
But Tim Polasek was in there as well, breaking that up.
He was in that.
Yeah,
okay,
he's in that. He's in that fracas as well, or scrum, as Scotty described. But that, Mike, lit the fire there. The Bison were very good, and Northern Iowa beat him the following year in 2010. But that set up what over the next 5 years what became. Man, those games were awesome.
And we've referenced this a lot the last several weeks because of South Dakota State coming to the Dome for such an important game. But in 2011, after NDSU made its run to the quarterfinals at Eastern Washington, which got everybody fired, that little playoff run in 2010 when they won 2 games and got to the quarterfinals and lost in overtime on a terrible call.
Yep.
That little run turned everything around for NDSU football, and people bought in that, wait a second, we could have / should have beaten Eastern Washington. We could have / should have beaten, I think Villanova would have been the next game. And they thought, wait, we can win a national championship. And so the next year is when the Dome sold out from day one.
Man.
And by the time the Northern Iowa game came around, NDSU and Northern Iowa were both unbeaten, and North Dakota State had to beat South Dakota State to make sure they were unbeaten.
Yep.
They did, and Scotty Miller said at the end of that broadcast,
I remember that.
they're going to be hanging from the rafters in the Fargo Dome. And they were.
Yeah.
You talk about...
It was awesome.
We've talked about Georgia Southern loud and SDSU loud.
Yeah. Yep.
That game
Northern Iowa
was the first one where you just went, whoa, this place is going to be something else when they fill it and get people excited. That was intense, that game.
Let's break. We come back. I got 2 other games to show you from 2015, the 2 games they played that season, which were dynamite football
fantastic.
games.
Yes.
Back with Mike McFeely here and Racer 132nd. Back after this. Welcome back, everybody, on this Tuesday morning edition of Hot Mike. We look back at the 2009. Still laughing at that lady in the microphone. Get him!
Yeah, get him!
Former Bison great Trevor Gebhardt watching this morning tweets at me, Dom, a fun fact about the Pashal versus UNI video. A young Andre Martin makes his appearance toward the end wearing number 8. Of course, he ended up transferring from Northern Iowa to NDSU, spent the 2012 season with the Bison, won a title there.
Won a ring there, huh?
Yep. We often bring up with this series as well, 2015 was the pinnacle, because then the Jacks got their act together. They beat the Bison the following year. But 2015, Mike, NDSU and Northern Iowa played twice, both games in Fargo.
Yes.
Both of them were fabulous football games.
Mm-hmm.
And both actually were quarterbacked by 2 different guys for the Bison. Carson Wentz played the first game, and then Easton Stick was the quarterback of the playoff game in December that year.
And by the way, the regular season game with Wentz at the Dome was also a great Scotty Miller call.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
When Darius Shepard caught the pass in the back of the end zone, and there was just a little pause from Scotty, and the place was going nuts.
Well,
and then Scotty did his thing, and it was just fantastic.
That was the game. Darius Shepard, Chris Kleiman told us he had 1 half in him. So he said, you're playing the second half.
Shoulder.
Right?
He had a bum shoulder.
Aaron Bailey, one of your favorites here. This is what Kolpak was talking about yesterday. Quarterback just outrunning the entire Bison defense down the sideline for it. These teams traded 5 touchdowns in the second half. This play gets forgotten. Wentz and Zach Braun, fourth down. Got 1 foot in bounds to keep the drive going. And then this is the touchdown to Darius Shepard.
And the place went nuts.
Yes.
And because of the angle of the press box, you couldn't quite fully see whether he caught it or not. And so Scotty had to just pause for a second.
Yep.
And then when he said it was just one of his best calls ever. Maybe my favorite one.
That was a 31-28 Bison win in a game that literally had 5 touchdowns scored in the fourth quarter. The score of the game, Mike, going into the fourth quarter, this is the game-sealing interception. C.J. Smith went up and got that one. It was 14-10 Northern Iowa going to the fourth quarter. The final score was 31-28.
Yeah.
It was a ridiculous fourth quarter. That was just the appetizer. The main course came in the quarterfinals, and I'll remind people that was the year every Valley team got put on the same side of the bracket. Remember that?
Yes,
the bracket of death.
Yes.
And we saw this, and the Bison were the third seed that year because they lost 2 games. We thought everybody was going to rip the chairs out of the Fargo Dome that season. That we saw Northern Iowa there, and Northern Iowa was humming. Like, they struggled, but then they got their act together late in the season, and they came here, and boy, this game was a fabulous game. Just a great, great football game between two teams.
And Easton Stick was quarterbacking because Wentz got hurt against South Dakota
The following week. Yeah.
Yep.
Chase Morlock, you see, this was the big play. I still don't know how Bruce Anderson didn't go down here. Like, he spun twice.
That was the second half kickoff, and Northern Iowa was ahead at halftime.
Correct.
And another point when Bruce ran that back, I think it was a true freshman.
Correct.
Ran it back. Again, the roof just about came off.
Ben LeCompte got interviewed by ESPN because he was amazing in this game at a couple of punts.
Ben LeCompte was voted the player of the game.
Player of the game. That's
I went
right.
back and looked. I wrote a column about the punter being the MVP.
King Frazier scored. The Bison were up 21-13. And then you want to talk about the roof going off. Brian Schatz got a safety here. And again, place went nuts. That sealed it there. The Bison ended up winning 23-13. And I think we thought it was, we recorded our post-game show that day, that may have been the national championship game because Illinois State got beat the night prior by Richmond
in
Normal.
Yes.
So the Bison were going to host the semifinals with
and they
Richmond.
hosted Danny Rocco.
And that game
I
was
think that's
boat
when
race.
Eric Perkins ran back a punt, and did he run back 2?
He had one long one that almost went, and he ran back another. They threw it for a touchdown. Yep.
I mean, so just fantastic. And that was, and this is what, again, people outside of Fargo and who are not Bison fans or Bison media don't understand is that, like, that Northern Iowa playoff game and the regular season game from 10 years ago, that's the standard that was set here in Fargo for the atmosphere and the crowds in the Fargo Dome.
What we're talking about now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I'm advocating for a move to FBS because I'm seeing 7,000 people in the stands for a first-round game against whatever team they played last year, that's in my memory bank is, could it get back to that again? Maybe it can't. But South Dakota State 2 weeks ago, that was that atmosphere again because that game was so important. And people saying, well, look, they love FCS football. It's one game over the last 6 years that people have gotten into. And so that used to be the norm. That used to be every week.
Right.
And maybe it'll never get back to that.
Ear splitting.
But, I mean, if you have a big game, it should be like that. And even the big games haven't been like that in the Dome.
No.
Other than maybe the James Madison
semifinal game, but that still wasn't a full house.
It was not full, but there was a good atmosphere. Good. It was loud. But other than that, when you have Samford coming in and you have
Drake
10,000 people for East Tennessee State, nobody cares.
No.
So there's my monologue for the 100th time.
We have that, though.
I mean,
and that just is a stark contrast to what we're going to see with Northern Iowa on the field on Saturday as compared to that. That's
if you want
dropped off a cliff.
And again,
there.
This is going way deep in the weeds for Bison football, but go back and look at the starting lineup for Northern Iowa in those 2015 games, and then go, holy man, was there some dudes on defense just studs for Northern Iowa.
Yeah, Carter Schultz was an all-conference player. DeAndre Hall
NFL
was an
player.
NFL draft pick.
NFL player.
Farley's kid got some NFL run.
Yep.
Tim Kilfoy was really good. He had the big pick the year prior against Carson Wentz. Brett McMakin was a dynamite linebacker. They were just loaded. Yeah. They were fun to watch. That's not what they have now.
Was Doris Fountain on that team too, or does that come later?
He was on that team with wide receiver. Yep. Darian Miller, wide receiver, was
Aaron
really
Bailey.
good. Bailey was their quarterback. And the year prior, by the way, they had David Johnson.
With all those same guys.
That's when they beat the Bison by 20 in Cedar Falls.
Yep.
It was fun stuff.
Yep.
I think we're going to have that on Saturday, my man.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
NDSU has like 4 players left.
Yeah, they're beat up, but Northern Iowa.
When do they start getting guys back? That's the question.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a couple. I think Jalen Duffy will probably be back this week at corner. They got Nick Kubitz back.
Yep.
See on Griffin Empey, he didn't play. Makai Collins didn't play.
Logan Kopp didn't
Kopp
play.
didn't. I think Kopp was more of a precautionary than anything. But yeah, I mean the bye week's here after this. So
Yep.
if you can get through this
if they can
game,
get through this game
right.
again, just win 20-19.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
Yep.
And then get to the bye week, and then
7-5,
then
whatever.
Then the
Yeah.
last two games are what it's all about.
Great to see you, bud. Thanks for
Yeah.
doing this, and thanks for the horse. I appreciate. We'll keep if this is okay. We'll keep him right here.
Yes.
Is that okay?
No, I brought him. Yeah. I mean,
I appreciate
I don't
that.
need to be like Kolpak.
You don't need the glory.
I'm not going to be talking about it in 15 years.
Thanks for coming by. Good to
Yep.
see you. Mike McFeely joining us each and every Tuesday. We'll break. We come back. Second hour on tap. North Dakota high school football playoffs resume this weekend. Minot North in its debut year had a dynamite season. We'll chat with them when hour 2 begins after this.